All right, anything else? Okay, let's move on to the monthly budget report. Tim?
Yeah, property taxes were due March 1st, and I think we talked last month that we had received a considerable amount of money in February. But in March, we received, we had total revenue of about $9.4 million. $9.1 million of that was in property tax receipts. But we also had $186,000 in property tax refunds for the month, and I'll talk about the projections for those in a minute. We also received, one of the things that I had in the report that I wanted to note was we received $137,000 in what's called mandated categoricals, which is reimbursements for special education and transportation. The state is ahead of last year. Last year they made 2 out of the 4 payments that they're supposed to make. This year they've already made 2 payments. It looks like they're going to make a 3rd payment. So we're ahead of that, and we received, as I said, $137,000 during the month. The year-to-date revenue, $19,977,000. It's actually 100% of budget at this point in time. The expenses for the month were about $1.5 million, which is a normal month, and our operating fund balances increased to $11.9 million at the end of March. That amount will start to drop now as we go through April, May, and June, and we're not receiving the property tax money, but we still have the expenses. And in May, we make the final payments on the payroll, and we pay out June and July. So we actually have 6 payrolls during the month of May as opposed to 2.
We still do
the rest of this year.
Rest of this year. That's here. On the financials, there were several questions. The reports that you get that we do on the Excel spreadsheets showed, as I just mentioned, like for example in revenue, $19,977,000. These reports didn't agree with the DCR detail report that you get. These reports are correct, and the numbers that are in the report that I sent to you and the numbers I've just talked about are correct. The reason being that when we ran that's a special report that we run off of DCR every month. We ran that after all the expenditures have been put in. We thought all the revenue had been put in by DCR, but then the treasurer added some additional revenue at the end of the month, which is why the revenue numbers are off, the expenditure numbers are not. There was a question about the IMRF tax levy, which shows that.
What page are you referring to, Tim?
This is page 17.
Of board book or of your report?
Of board book. And it shows 0 property taxes received in the current year. The reason is that we discussed a few months ago that we had an IMRF audit, and one of the things that that IMRF discovered was that in the past we had been using the IMRF tax levy to pay Social Security expenses. They both come out of the same fund. And so what we did is we worked out an arrangement with IMRF where for a 2-year period we wouldn't levy any IMRF taxes, and we would double the amount that we were levying in Social Security. That'll take care of the problem in a matter of a couple of years, and it's not going to impact that fund because all we've done is double up on the Social Security. There was a question regarding one of the wellness stipends, which I think came up last month, and that had to do with the budget for the wellness stipend was just for the department chair. It should have included a stipend for the assistant athletic trainer, which was $16,000. That money was not put into the budget. That's my mistake on that, but I think we're going to be able to cover that with some of the temporary and overtime salaries that we've set up in the budget that are going to come in under budget. There was a question about outside facility rental charges in the operations fund. The reason that those expenditures are over budget is because the rental income is going to end up over budget. I think the rental income through the end of March was $63,500 and the budget is $67,500. So we're going to end up going over budget on rental income, but correspondingly we're going to be over budget on some of the expenditures that we bill, the operations expenditures that we bill. There was a question regarding the capital projects fund. We had a beginning balance of $20,714. That's still the amount that still the amount that's shown in that fund, although during the month of April so far, we've processed $10,000 against that. We're gonna have a balance of about $10,000. At the end of the year in June, I'll bring you a resolution to transfer that money out of the capital projects fund into the operations fund and then close out the capital projects fund. That's a normal thing that you do when you set up a capital projects fund and you do the construction like we did. When you come to the end, if there's money left, it can be transferred into the operations fund. And I think that basically on the financials, they're
Quarterly review
on
and
the quarterly
projection.
review, I'm sorry. The quarterly review, one of the things, the more significant items is the property tax refunds. Right now, we are at about $511,000, so we're actually $337,000 under budget on refunds, which is a positive. And as I mentioned earlier, the refunds for special education and transportation, if the state makes those third payments, which it looks like they're going to, we're going to come in over budget on that by about $350,000. On the expenditure side, we're going to come in under budget on the electricity. We've talked about that, and we're also going to come in under on special ed tuition. Kevin and I met with Mrs. Branken the other day and looked at what we expected expenditures to be for the rest of this year, and we're going to come in significantly under budget on that item. So we'll pick up, I think, at least $100,000 on the expenditure side. One of the things that I also review on a quarterly basis is the contracts that we have. We have the transportation contract coming up, which is the transportation for the field trips and the athletics. It is not the special ed transportation. That's handled by LADSI. We're going to go out to bid on the transportation. I've started working on putting the bid together. I've been working with Art to get some information from him to put into the bid. One of the other things that I put in my report was the contract for the vending. And there were some questions raised on that with regard to pricing, with regard to the cost to the students. Different pricing. There was a question about different pricing before school, after school, on weekends versus during the day. The machines aren't accessible during the day by the students. The gate comes down. We can't have those accessible to the students during the day, so that wouldn't be an issue.
Those are closed during the day because of our contract with Aramark. You have to purchase the food through, or Quest.
But I did try and contact our representative today to discuss some of the other issues that were brought up. He didn't get back to me, so I'll discuss those with him in the next week or so.
Overall, are we receiving consistent commissions and performance with vending?
Yes, overall we're satisfied with the agreement that we have. I have talked to him about what they could give us in terms of signing bonuses or increased percentages if we were to extend the contract, and they're still working on that.
Private investigator, residency?
Private investigators, we've started. I've been working with John Passarella. We've started to put together the information for a bid on that. And I think that's...
Minibuses?
Yeah. I can talk about that now. That the minibus lease, I came to you last month. We talked about this. There was a question about the seat belts. There are going to be seat belts in those buses. There's not going to be any change in the pricing on that.
And our current ones already have seat belts too.
Yes.
Any questions for Tim?
Tim, I got another question. Just this pay to participate for athletics, that's $60,000. Was that for spring?
What
Under revenues.
What page?
Page 5, revenues.
Is that 5 at the top or bottom?
Under revenues, top. You've got, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 item.
60,230 on your first page of your summary, your report.
Well, the first page.
Revenues. And your memo.
In your summary of revenues, to make your 9.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that,
Is that the month of, just the month
That-
of March?
No, that's not just the month of March, but that transfers in from the registration fees. When we collect fees, we put everything into registration fees, because when they're working on that, it's difficult to take all that and separate it out. Then, when the woman in the office has time, she goes back and pulls the fees out and moves them to the proper accounts. So that, part of that is just moving the fees into the pay to participate.
So it could have been
From the
fees from the
registration.
fall, could have been fees from,
I would say it's probably more from the winter and the spring. I wouldn't say it's from the fall.
okay.
Yeah, I have the same question on pay to play, because it looks like we only brought in 19,000 when we thought we would bring in 35,000 on
What
page
page?
11.
Well, that, the one you're
Okay.
talking about is for the
Clubs.
clubs. The athletics is right above it.
Yeah, the athletics, we're at 168,000, we budgeted 176.
The one,
So,
Laura, the one you
but-
said was for the clubs.
On the
We-
club-
So that's the club. So
Yeah,
the
the clubs-
athletics, we
right.
almost have everything, but on the clubs, we're almost at the end of the school year, and we've only collected 43%.
right.
And so, I think it begs the question, when we revisit, is it too expensive? Or, if it's too expensive, we won't recoup our charges and our students won't
Yeah.
participate
For the activities.
for the activities.
Yeah, the other thing too is this is the first year of doing it.
Right.
For activities, so I'm not sure how, we're working through some of the kinks like we had to work through that first year of doing the pay to participate, of accurately tracking who's participating and how they're paying.
Yeah, and we did ask on that to see if we've lost students doing multiple sports, if that's decreased because of pay to play.
Yeah, he's gonna try to track that for the May cow, when he does the whole year in all 3 seasons, to see if we had a drop in multiple sports.
John,
Could you do, Tim, could you do an analysis on the registration fee? I mean, that's a major blow on the revenue. We budgeted 268,000, and we're at 207,000. I always thought registration fees a pretty simple one to have calculated.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look at
Thank you.
it, come back.
We're gonna have some outstanding fee balances too.
Well, if he comes in and he says he still has X outstanding as a receivable, then I can understand that.
Prom tickets are on sale through when, Pam?
I don't know, they're almost all sold out.
Most of the kids
I'm
gotta
not sure.
square up their fee balances
Yeah.
before they can buy their
Almost sold
prom
out.
tickets, so hopefully, yeah, but we don't, it's not like we have a real-time collection, so you might not see that money registered to the right accounts. But we should keep an analysis on it.
But I'll do that for next meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I
Just to
have,
answer John's question, John, if you look at the registration fees on 11, there's a $33,000 credit. So if you assume most of that went into the athletics, the credits from other collections and the difference would be more new registrations.
Okay. Right.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a few questions.
What page?
Well, the first question, it was one I asked about 2 months ago. I don't need an answer, just something that we can talk about. It was on the store inventory, and I had asked, how do we do that when more and more organizations are going to real time and not inventory? And I don't need an answer now. I was just wondering, do we end up with supplies that we end up throwing away because they're no longer good? You know, if we look at kind of like lean management, we buy what we need and we use everything and we clear it out. So that was something I was curious about. My next, and the second question I had, I don't need an answer now, and I think something to look at in the future, is when we look at the revenues in the summer school offerings.
What page?
That
You'll
would
be able to
be,
give us a page so we can look at it and follow with you. So what
Summer-
page?
summer school offerings begin on page 10. And what caught my eye, there's the fine arts survey, but we won't be offering that in the summer. We had budgeted to make that money. But then as I looked at the courses we're offering, it might be something the board wants to look at in conjunction with what we do in curriculum. We've had discussions that it might be nice if we offered more programming classes. Some of the changes that we'll see later on in English, more English classes, to make a more robust summer school curriculum And then my question would be for Tim and Kevin, as money comes in through summer school tuition fees, can the school use that money towards operations? So
Right.
can we actually make money?
Well, right now-
We can offer more things that would be viable. A third of our school could use, we're not meeting requirements in reading, math, science. We could start to offer more courses in the summer.
That's on the agenda for tonight to talk about
Right.
summer school. Last year, we were under the intent that we weren't supposed to make money, it was supposed to break even. But we did use a portion of that money that went to Airmark for air conditioning and custodial services and to cover the teacher stipends. We ended up making some profit or revenue, but the goal, we thought it was to set the fee at to break even.
But when I mean like make money, if we were to generate income over the summer that could be used for programming into the fall, might that be something we should be looking at in the future?
Then we'll have the discussion. We had a pretty long, intensive discussion last year talking about the fact that our summer school fee probably wasn't even covering the overhead type of cost, and we were probably losing money. And the concept was at least just to break even, so include the cost of air conditioning, include the cost that we're going to have cleaning. We made a conscious decision. I thought we did. I thought we had a discussion say we don't want to become a money maker scenario where we're going to try to make money off these summer school classes. We just want to break even, cover our operating costs associated with offering that class. You're now proposing to say, let's make money on these classes.
I'm proposing twofold. I could see that there's need for programming classes, there's need for maybe more mathematics classes, for college study. The Illinois Association of School Board has put out some nice articles about dual credit classes, and so there's need for courses that could happen in the summer that would fill an educational need, which is our first mission. Likewise, I work for a non-for-profit that focuses on education in the professions. With the money generated from those courses, we can create more programming to further that educational mission.
Well, we're going to have a major discussion later on in this meeting relating to the summer school courses. Why don't you bring that up, the concept you want to do at that point? Because we're going to be talking courses.
You asked two questions. The first one is money. First of all, we're a school, so we don't make any income. We take in revenues and we have expenses, and there's either a deficit or there's a surplus. But regardless of what, our revenues or our money goes into one of the funds. So if we had a summer school course and we charged $100 a student and it would only cost us $50 a student and there were 10 students, there'd be $500 in excess revenue that would go into the bank, and we could use it for whatever purpose we chose to.
Well, and I'd like to have that conversation. As I mentioned, I work for a non-for-profit educational organization, and there is profit in the profit sense, but that profit must be used to create further educational programming. So we've never thought about that. You know, in one way, the school can sit passively and wait for tax dollars to support all the offerings. But yet the summer offers us a nice opportunity to offer more courses.
So why don't we
And
hold
then,
this?
and then use that money. So the conversation in the money is, if in fulfilling our educational mission, we can generate income that would help us further our educational mission, might that be something we as a board might want to consider?
I got a
So
question for
let's
you.
talk about,
Are you
hold on
looking
guys,
at it
hold on
as
guys. We have
Let's move
an
it.
item on the agenda as summer school. Let's talk about it then.
Yeah, let's move
She's
it.
she's
talking
not
about
asking a
budgeting.
summer school question, though.
Some money.
Yes,
She's
What do you
asking
do
a
with
revenue
coverage?
question.
It's a philosophy on summer school. How are you going
And
to
money.
charge it?
And it's a philosophical question on money in the nonprofit.
But I have a question for you, Laura. Do you consider that a windfall that is used for a beneficial purpose, or would you consider it part of policy that it generates X amount of dollars that is allocated toward mathematics or whatever you were referring to?
It's a mechanism to reach the educational mission. I feel like there's gaps in our educational mission, or things we could be doing more of. You and I have even talked about programming or different offerings, or in mathematics, or just expanding that curriculum. college studies, but how would we fund that? So
I
if there's a
understand the
mechanism
spirit of what
to
you're saying, but
fund
was
that.
it one thing or is it another? Is it a windfall that just happened to be there? Or is it going to be a matter of policy that you derive a chunk of money from the
Right.
participation and then earmark it for
I think
different
it speaks to
purpose?
sustainability, economical sustainability
So it would
of
be
programming.
policy, the latter, not the former.
One of the reasons I have it on the agenda tonight is just to more or less ask the board for their expectation. Am I to break even, or are we to make increase revenue? So it is one of the reasons it's on the agenda tonight.
Okay, any other questions on, with Tim's report?